Let's party.
Hello and welcome to Party Loaded. It is episode 223 for something in June 2020. I'm losing track of the days. Not really that important. Look it up if you need to. My name's Luke Retallick. Joining me tonight, we have the full crew back on deck. We've got Adrian Chia, we have Christian Paulson Brown, and we have Matt, the Game Dad Diet. I will never get these angles right. I'm all turned around. What the hell? Gentlemen, I would like to propose that we label tonight's episode as stacked, because I had a look at the things that we want to talk about, particularly things that we've been playing, because it turns out we have all been playing a lot of games. We got shit to talk about tonight. I'm excited. I don't want to mess around. I actually just want to chat games, and I want to chat to Christian first tonight, because you were not here last episode, so we got a little bit of catch up. What have you been playing, man? What's going on?
So I have played a couple of new games since I was last on, but I also finished Final Fantasy VII Remake. And despite playing and completing a couple of other games, that's still the game that I'm most kind of jazzed to talk about. I just really liked it. I wanted to say that it took me 45 hours to beat the main story, and then I played about another 15 hours post-game, just doing some extra hidden bosses and that sort of stuff.
Oh, so did you have to go back to previous save files, or were you able to do that from your existing one?
It unlocks a chapter select, and then you can just jump around. And then also a lot of the optional battles actually take place in there's a VR combat simulator that's part woven into the narrative. And so you jump into VR combat challenges. Things like the summons in the game, you actually unlock the summons by beating them in VR. There's a new character who's like a kid researching materia, and you have to do side quests for him. And then once you've done enough side quests, he has developed the idea of a new summon, and then you have to defeat it in VR, and then you unlock it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, because that kind of is emblematic of the fact how much of a new game it is, because in the original Final Fantasy VII, you never even got any summons at all until you were past where this game takes place. Your characters get to level 50 in this game, which is that's the end of Final Fantasy VII is level 50. It's a full game, you know. And I wanted to say, after I finished it, I really loved the story a lot, and particularly the ending of the story, which is drastically different. I won't say exactly how, but there's some shit going on, some crazy stuff. And then I wanted to rewatch the cutscenes, and there's no convenient kind of theater mode in the game that you can just watch the cutscenes. So I went on YouTube and I found a compilation, one video of all the cutscenes in the game, and it's 15 hours long.
Wow.
So
holy shit.
Yeah. So just the cutscenes in the game are twice as long as the original section of Final Fantasy VII.
Just on that note, little tangent, but I did the same thing for the Mortal Kombat 11 expansion that came out. Because the Mortal Kombat 11 had this crazy long story mode. The MK11 expansion, I found, again, you a supercut of all the videos. It's over 2 hours long, just the video content.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's cool.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So that means that there's probably about actual 30 hours of gameplay then, given that map.
Yeah. I definitely took my time with it. I didn't rush through anything. I did every side quest. I think my playthrough is as much juice as you could squeeze out of it, about 70 hours. I actually never did the toughest optional challenge. There's still one thing I couldn't be fucked doing. I'd maxed all my characters. I'd maxed all the materia basically. And this combat challenge just required such a specific setup. And I was like, I can't be fucked doing it. It's just too much.
Yeah.
But I did some other crazy stuff. Sorry, my headphone just popped out. All right. And then last thing I wanted to say was that I'm super excited to see where they go with in future, because it's the kind of game that you finish it and then I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos of people like analyzing it and like connecting it to all the different other Final Fantasy stuff, because I didn't know just how big the Final Fantasy VII lore was, with like comics and like Advent Children and Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus and all this stuff, and it's all canon in the remake. Like there are a bunch of new characters that I thought were made up for the remake, but they're actually like, oh, there's this one comic called The Kids Are All Right with this character in it, and like now he's been brought in, and now they've been brought into the story. So yeah, and I know that like a lot of original fans are really hyped for how consistent and how deep they've gone in like dredging up the lore.
That's really cool. I had no idea they did that. Nice.
Yeah. I also played Call of Duty World War II because it was on PlayStation Plus, one of the free games.
One second, Christian. Just before you get onto Call of Duty, I have one remaining question about Final Fantasy just before we move off that.
Sure.
Don't answer this if it's too much of a spoiler. I'm not sure if it will be or not. You said that the ending of it was drastically different to what you remember that point of the story being in your original playthrough.
Yeah.
Is it possible, and I really want you to not answer this if you think it's going to spoil things, is it possible that the ending being drastically different is more due to things being displaced in terms of the chronology as opposed to changed? What I mean by that is when they do the next part, is it possible that those changes will make sense because things have been moved into that part?
I'm not sure. So are you saying, you mentioned like they're changing the chronology, like
hypothetically, if you're saying that this section of the game is drastically different because key events didn't happen where they normally would have, or vice versa,
sure,
is it possible that those things have been deferred to a later instance of the remake, is kind of what I'm asking.
I will say that that question doesn't make sense with unknowing the ending. That question kind of doesn't actually apply. It's a different thing that happens. Like it's not events happen kind of out of sequence. It's that question can't be answered.
Right. Okay, cool. I think that's going to lead to a situation where everybody who plays this game are going to be extremely fucking hyped for the next installment, because they're going to be like, where the hell does this go?
Well, it is super divisive. Like I think that just spitballing, I'd say probably over 50% of people who are fans of the original didn't like the ending. Okay. I'd actually say it's divisive enough that it's tipped on that side. There's still tons of people who do, but my sort of reading of it online is that most people are kind of unhappy about the ending. But I think because I'm less precious about Final Fantasy VII being a fairly new fan, it doesn't bother me as much what they've done. Like I'm like, I'm excited by it, but there are some people who are a bit more sensitive to things. So
interesting.
And then there are some people who are happy that those people are upset.
Yeah,
I guess one way you could kind of look at it would be almost like, original Marvel Avengers versus the Ultimates. Kind of like a retelling of the same story.
I wish so much that I could say more about it. I already feel like I've said too much. I'm sorry if anyone like I don't know if you saw my tweet after I finished it. I just tweeted out like, I need to talk about this with somebody, and I did have a couple of people reply who I jumped into their DMs, and like I just had like conversations with 3 different people just about the game, and that in and of itself is a big part of the reason why I liked it so much, is having that opportunity, feeling that energized to talk about it, having, being that excited about something. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
As opposed to Call of Duty World War II, which was shit.
Right.
I just played the single player because forget playing COD multiplayer, and the single players, like I'm a big fan of, history. I'm a big fan of World War II history. I love Battlefield 1942. I played the old Medal of Honor games. I even played like Call of Duty World at War. I think it was like a mid-2000s Call of Duty that was World War II themed, and I enjoyed that campaign. This one was just bad. It's just boring, and the characters are just these cardboard cutouts of soldiers. The dialogue is just the cheesiest, cringiest war dialogue you can think of. Like literally the characters are going like just leave me alone. Like I can't go on. I'm too injured. Go on without me. And they're like, I'm not going to leave you behind. Just like the cheesiest war dialogue you've ever heard.
90 movies tropes sort of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And it made me think while I was playing it. It made me appreciate the new Wolfenstein and Doom games so much, and even Destiny as well, in that I'd forgotten how stale first-person shooters had become. Like, I remember when I played Doom 2016, part of the reason why Doom 2016 was so fucking good is because it felt different to a lot of the shooters at the time. It felt more arcadey. It felt like a good hybridization of old school, more arcade shooters and modern shooters. And this is throwing me right back to like this ugly mid 2000s period where shooters were slower, more cover based. Enemies are just like practice ranges. Like it's literally that kind of thing where there's a wall in front of you, you have a gun, and then there's a exploited building with windows, and like characters with like rocket launchers will appear in the windows, and you have to like shoot them so that they don't blow up like a tank. And just that kind of shooting gallery style shooter is just so boring now. I just couldn't. Yeah. Fortunately, it was only like 4 hours to finish. So
really, only 4 hours for the entire story campaign.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours max. It's like 10 missions, and each mission's probably 20 minutes or something. So I don't know how that breaks down, but yeah, pretty short. And the other game I played was Subnautica, which I know you discussed in detail last week. So I won't mention much at all about that, other than I did thoroughly enjoy it. I've talked with Adrian a lot about it just through chat, and I didn't get quite the same sense of like fear and terror that he got. Like for me, it was more exciting to explore, and there were occasional moments where the great void and the dark unknown was creepy, or like there were a couple of like jump scare-esque type things, like suddenly being attacked. But mostly I found that very exciting and like interesting to explore and poke around in the different biomes. I didn't have that sense of terror. Engaging with some of the story stuff was actually the creepiest things for me, like getting into when you're getting into the actual narrative going on behind the scenes. That was some of the creepiest stuff for me, more than actually swimming around. So
no, so you didn't,
but it's a really good game.
You didn't ink yourself like Adrian did. You didn't spread your cabinet everywhere. No
inking.
No, cool.
I am baby man.
I think it's just a personal thing, right? Like that particular fear, I guess, just doesn't do it for me.
Giving Adrian shit aside, I could completely relate to that, because I think underwater is fucking terrifying. Like of all the things out there that you could make really like good horror sort of tales out of, that's high on the list for me for sure. So yeah.
Luke, you know how you were saying you would have liked to have seen how I reacted to it, given how Adrian was talking about it?
I sure would, Matt. Well, can you show us or just tell us?
No, I'll tell you. Adrian's a big pussy boy. I played it as well. I haven't actually finished it yet. I think I'm actually on the final stretch now. Like I just figured out where the central alien base is that you kind of have to find. I've thoroughly enjoyed it as well, but I haven't found it quite as scary. There's a couple of areas where they become scary when you realize what's down there after it grabs you a submarine, and you're like, nope, and you just fucking jump out and run, basically. But it's not really a horror. Like it's not really scary at all. But when I've been playing it, I was actually streaming it for some friends. And their reactions were way more in line with what Adrian was talking about, where they're just like, that's dark and deep water. I can't see the ground. Fuck no. I'm just going to not watch this anymore because it's freaking me out.
I'll tell you this little anecdote, which might indicate why I'm so scared of it. My parents have a pool, and I grew up with a pool in my backyard. And I used to do this thing where I used to be in the pool by myself. I used to duck underwater in the shallow end and look into the deep end. And I used to have to run out of the pool because I used to imagine a shark in the water, and then I couldn't go back in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
So I think if I can scare myself out of the pool, then I think
would you do that at night or during the day?
During the day. Like I'd just be like,
I had a pool too, and like swimming at night sometimes, I would get like a shiver of like, oh, what if there's something in the pool? But not during the day.
Yeah, like so if I can scare myself out of the pool in the middle of the day, then I guess that explains why I can't play Subnautica. Well, why Subnautica had such an effect.
The scariest thing I've ever encountered in a swimming pool is not knowing whether some idiot threw a beer bottle and smashed it in the bottom or not. That was the scariest thing for me. Yeah. None of this underwater sea creature rubbish.
I also watched Jaws 1 like Christmas holidays before going to Coral Bay, and I only went swimming on the last day we were there. So I think when I look back at my trauma, there's like,
there's a lot to unpack here. Like,
Yeah.
Slide down and you guys can like.
Yeah.
I'm glad you played it, Matt. I'm glad that you like.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Like the base building is tons of fun. Like I've got like 3 bases that I've set up. And like my home base, I've made it this gigantic thing. Most of my time in the game has been base building.
I really enjoy the base building part of it.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't normally, but I did. There's something about like because it's underwater. There's something about like building a dry space under the ocean.
That's why so many people do it in Minecraft. It's a hugely popular thing to do. Yeah.
But the way the game progresses is really cool. There's a couple of points where I got a little bit annoyed that the game doesn't really tell you like what to do next. I'm kind of at that weird point right now where there's a couple of different story threads that are going on at the same time, but they don't really seem to have a point where they converge. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I have no idea how to fix this thing, so I'm just going to follow this story thread to see where it takes me. But a lot of that time has basically just been me just like sitting down and being like, I don't want to deal with the story right now. I'm going to build cool looking bases. So
I found that I always knew what I was supposed to be doing, but I got frustrated when I couldn't physically find what I was supposed to be doing. Like I always knew, you know what I mean? So I did end up Googling a couple of like, where the fuck is X, or like some material that I needed. I'd be like, how do I get this material? Just because I didn't want to feel like I was wasting time. Yeah, just poking around trying to find stuff.
Yeah. A lot of that I feel like. Sorry, go on, Adrian.
No, I was just saying I did that as well. Like I ended up probably about just over halfway through the game, I started using a map and started using the wiki and
I tried that, and then it was a single piece of advice that helped me out a ton, which is basically like the moment you find there's this underwater fossil cave. The moment you find that space, the rest of the game is linear. You basically just follow that cave system. Yeah. And like I was trying to follow like this big open world map that's multi-layered, and it's like, oh my fucking god, like navigating that thing is a pain in the ass. Yeah. But the moment somebody said that, and I just kept on exploring that fossil cave, it's like, okay, yeah, no, I like everything just kind of connects up from there. So you really only need to find that location, and then the rest of the game kind of just unfolds.
3 or 4 entrances into there as well, I think.
Yeah. So it's actually quite easy to find.
Yeah, and that cave, the Lost River, it spans the entire map almost, like inside. So it's almost like a second map underneath.
It's
the first one.
I quite like the fact that as you're kind of exploring and getting better at the game and building up your tools and everything like that. When I first got to that underground lake, it's just like, oh man, this place sucks. This scares the shit out of me. But now I have a base down there. I go down there all the freaking time to gather nickel and everything like that. And it's just like, nah, I don't care. What the fuck ever. Not a big deal.
It does get to that point. Like I mentioned to Christian on my second playthrough, and I mentioned when I talked about it, that like all the shit that scared me, now you can just like circle strafe around it and like knife it. And then you're like, it's not scary anymore.
I always found that just going up and down, like Leviathans, even when they're swimming right towards you, I just go up and they wouldn't get me, and I could just go up and down, and like I felt invulnerable.
Yeah, so I think for me, I never got brave enough to try to outsmart them. There was always like an invisible barrier around that shadow in the distance that would just prevent me from trying to outmaneuver them. So I never really did that.
I wanted to scan everything as soon as I saw it. So whenever I'd see a predatory creature, I would just jump out of my submarine and just scan it. And a couple of times I would like try to scan a Leviathan and die, but I just reload, try again, die, and then eventually I'd successfully scan it. And then by that time I'd like learnt its AI.
No, I can't do that.
there came a point where you get this upgrade for the Seamoth that allows you to like discharge this electricity, and you can zap stuff around you. And the moment I got that, a whole bunch of creatures that scared the shit out of me, I spent a ton of time just chasing them down and zapping them.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, what changed it was the prawn suit, because once you get the grappling, you can shoot the grappling hook at a Leviathan's face and like rodeo it and drill it while like rodeoing. That took away a lot of the fear, like being and the fact that the prawn suit is nigh indestructible. Like when a Leviathan attacks the prawn suit, it does like 10 damage, and I felt like Superman in that thing.
So your solution to overcoming your fear was the prawn drill. Cool.
Yeah. Exactly. I named Christopher Jones, by the way.
Nice.
Oh god. Yeah. It sounds like an awesome game. I'm keen to play. It's just not being able to wedge into my schedule in the last couple of weeks for obvious reasons. But yeah. Well, anything else, Matt? What else did you get up to?
So weirdly, like Christian, I also went and picked up an FPS that's been on my radar for a little while. I played Titanfall 2.
Hey.
And I actually played the campaign to that. It has been like on my list to play for ages, but unlike Christian's experience, I fucking loved it. Like it is so good. Awesome. It is just incredible. This is potentially an unpopular opinion, but I actually prefer the movement in Titanfall 2 over the most recent Doom games. Mm-hmm. Like you do a lot of movement running around. Like it's very.
I can understand
it feels like Mirror's Edge if the gunplay in Mirror's Edge didn't suck, right? Like you're running around on walls and you're shooting shit, and like you just feel like a total badass whenever you're able to do that. The characters are cool. Like the big Titan that you interact with, BT, is so fucking cool. Like,
hang on, the big Titan is literally called BT for Big Titan. That's awesome.
It's BT. You kind of develop this really like sincere attachment to it. The voice acting is great because the player character you're voice acted by Matthew Mercer. You get dialogue options on how you interact with BT and you can ask questions, that sort of thing. But yeah, like the moment I started playing it, and you kind of like do the this whole here's this gun range, do this time trial, see how you go. And the moment I got into that and I ran through it once, and they're like, we suggest hard. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to keep on trying until I get the suggestions go higher. And it's just so deeply satisfying when you start mastering all that movement. It's absolutely this kind of game where I could go back and just play through a whole ton of those levels just to mess around with the movement and try to perfect like a run through of a scene.
And it's cool. It's cool how the tutorial at the start even ties into the narrative. Like it's an in-universe tutorial. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is literally like that beginning tutorial sets you up for dealing with the very end of the game. Like the last sequence at the end of the game is basically the tutorial moment. Only they give you one of the coolest guns from the Titanfall universe and basically just say fuck them up, and it is just so amazing. I loved that whole sequence. It's like a very short campaign as well, not 4 hours short. It's like 8 hours, I think, which is pretty typical for kind of first-person shooters that time. But now that I've played it, I'm really annoyed because this game, I would have loved to have been around when the multiplayer was really active to get in on that shit. Because, yeah, it's just amazingly fun.
Whenever I hear anybody talk about...
It was awesome.
Whenever I hear anybody talk about Titanfall 2, it's never about the multiplayer. It's always about the campaign. So
yeah, the campaign's incredible.
The multiplayer was good as well, but yeah. You understand now. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like the thing with the multiplayer, I think, is that like it was overshadowed at the time. I think it was Battlefield that came out, and so like if Battlefield wasn't out at the same time, I think that people would have talked about the multiplayer a lot more. But
yeah, EA famously outcompeted themselves releasing Battlefield 4, I think it was, within a couple of weeks of Titanfall 2.
That's right. Yeah.
So they kind of screwed it over.
You can understand why I was such a whiny baby when Apex Legends came out and did so well, and I got sad that it meant that they might not, do more single player Titanfall because it's so good.
It's so fucking good, but the rumor is that they are going back to it. It's just that I think the very ending of Titanfall 2 actually suggests what's going to happen next, and it kind of sets up Apex Legends in a really interesting way. But yeah, I do think they'll do a Titanfall 3. I really hope they do, because fucking hell, it was good.
A gap between them might not be a bad thing. Like, build up quite a bit of hype for it. So,
I mean, it's been like that game's 7 years old now, is it?
It's something like that.
It came out because it came out on 360 and that was the original Titanfall.
That was the original Titanfall. I think it might be more like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think it's probably 5 years. That sounds about right to me. It was the same year as 4
years, 2016.
Shadow of Mordor, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, there was one other game that I played and finished, which actually was also relatively short. But when I was getting kind of frustrated with Subnautica at a couple of points, because I was like, I have no idea where I'm meant to go next. I'm frustrated. I don't want to just keep on doing base building. I'm going to play something else. And so I kind of went through my my Steam list and suggested games, and ended up picking up a little indie game called Yes, Your Grace.
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah, it's really, really good. So basically, it's if Game of Thrones had a decent game. You basically play as a king. You make difficult decisions about how you kind of spend resources. But the game's primarily like that decision-making process. You're trying to prepare your kingdom to face different conflicts and such, like different wars. But you've also got to take care of your citizenry and also build up your army. And it seems like a really kind of struggling kingdom, and you're set up against like far larger powers that you kind of got to fight against. And so you make a lot of very difficult decisions in the game. Like, do I help out this family by giving them supplies that I really need to give to my army? But if I give them supplies, then they are going to give me more army. Like, you kind of got to balance these things out. I think overall the ending that I got was like actually a pretty good one though. But yeah, like it was a great little palate cleanser of a game. Probably like 12 hours of gameplay in it, which is pretty solid. So it looks like early King's Quest with style, basically. Yeah. It's got a ton of style to it. It's got a whole lot of character. All the different characters in the game have really cute personalities. There's the way it delivers dialogue is really good in that like it's kind of like these grunts at the start of a sentence, but that the grunting actually kind of sets the tone for the sentence. So like if somebody's really struggling, it'll be like or something like that, like they might sound sad, but without actually spoken words, like it actually really sets the tone for what they're actually saying, even without having to deliver dialogue. Yeah, but yeah, I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. If you want like a little palate cleanser game, 100% recommend picking up Yes or Grace. It's good. Yeah, it does look good. How long did it take you to play? Let me actually check what I have on Steam, because I think it was about 12 hours. Oh, no, 10 hours to finish it. Probably a couple of times in there where I had it paused and walked away, so maybe like 8 hours to finish. So yeah, not bad at all. Nice. All right. Adrian, let's handball to you. What do you got going on?
So I had my uni exam. I can't claim I had more than one exam, I'll be honest. So I was playing just a little bit of Overwatch and a little bit of Mortal Kombat 11 to sort of just give me something to do that I didn't have to really commit to in between. But then I ended up playing like Mortal Kombat 11 for like 10 hours straight. So that might be my new obsession, because
sounds like something you do.
Well, yeah, I picked it up and was like, oh yeah, like it's kind of interesting. But I sunk like some more time into it, and I changed my controls method. Instead of using the fight stick, I swapped to the controller. Yeah. And now I'm kind of obsessed with Mortal Kombat 11, and I feel like Street Fighter V was like really good vanilla ice cream, and Mortal Kombat 11 is like cold rock ice cream with like gummy bears and like nerds mixed into it. So
friendship ended with Street Fighter V.
No, there's a purity that I still enjoy for Street Fighter, but it is fun doing. And they're very different in how they play. Like they're very different in how they feel. So, but that's been good. So I've enjoyed that. But the thing I mostly sunk my time into the last 2 weeks was No Man's Sky.
Oh wow! Coming straight from Subnautica, I can kind of see the connecting lattice work here.
Yeah, and I remember just around the time Christian was starting Subnautica, I'd finished my second playthrough of it, and was like, I want more of this feeling. Where can I get it? And the closest thing I could think of was No Man's Sky. And from everything I read and all the research I did, it is sort of the next sort of. It's a couple of other games like the Astroneer was floating around in my periphery, and that's got kind of a Subnautica feel. Even Deep Rock Galactic has kind of a Subnautica vibe to it.
I think that's
really
just properly.
Again,
I'm fucking down for that. I was just going to say, I think that might have just come out of early access. Actually,
we need to coerce Christian into it because, now it's out of early access, and I think the four of us playing that game, holy shit, that would be awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah. It's fucking great. Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, I think we'd really enjoy that. Maybe on a stream. What was I saying? But No Man's Sky. So I booted it up and I'm like, it took me a couple of goes to get into it. And I think the problem was I tried playing it on survival mode first, which is like the harder mode where your resources, you have to mine twice as many resources. You have to maintain your shield and your oxygen at double the rate. And I did a lot of searching. Should I play it in this mode? Should I play it in that mode? And half the people are like, "Oh, you're a filthy casual if you don't play survival," and the other half are like, "Don't do it. It's just it's added numbers, not added challenge."
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and that is true. It ended up kind of being the case, and that sort of. So I rebounded pretty hard off of it at first, to the point where I even requested a refund from Steam. And
That's
then
what I did.
Yeah. I actually ended up buying it again after getting the refund because I decided to give it another go. Played it for 70 hours, and it can be summed up.
I love how you just casually, I just played it for 70 hours. Just,
but that's not much. 70 hours is it's that's like a week of playing the game.
That's like a quarter of a shiny.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, No Man's Sky has every solar system in No Man's Sky has a chance to spawn a rare ship, like an epic S-class spaceship. Of that 70 hours, probably about 30 hours was spent shiny hunting for these.
Oh god,
I got
it's amazing.
I got 4 of them, including one of the squid ones, which are even rarer. And after that. I was like, oh, that was... And what was really funny is I was hunting for it, hours and hours of hunting. And then I gave up, and then I just walked into a space station, and there was just one sitting there. I was like, isn't that very, typical of... Isn't that a good anecdote? So... And I got to about the 70-hour mark, and I remember I'd finished, the main story thread, and then I went like this. Close game. Oh, I don't think I'm going to play that anymore. And that was it.
Oh, wow.
There was literally nothing asking me to go back and play it. I think overall it's a fun experience, but I can understand how some people just get into it because people get in, there's a community for everything. There's people that love fucking their toasters and they have a Reddit and they, talk about how the different slots on the toaster are better for your dick.
Which number they like.
Yeah, how toasty they like it. And, whether they shake the crumbs over themselves at the end or whether they leave them in the bottom of the toaster. There's a community for that. Just in the same way there's a community for Fallout 76 and there's a community for No Man's Sky. I understand the, agricultural community aspect of No Man's Sky, and perhaps playing it alone didn't give me the same kind of experience because Subnautica is a game that you're meant to play alone. And so I thought, No Man's Sky, I'll get the same kind of vibe. And I did to a slight extent, but I think that is meant to be more of a ironically, it didn't start out that way because people...
Exactly, yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know, I think maybe that's what I'm trying to say is I think that's the only thing giving it legs now is once you've done enough exploring, there's nothing left to find. What's the fucking point of visiting 1 billion planets when they're all the same variation of the same random shit you've seen everywhere else? What is the point? The only thing I can think of is finding friends and building stuff together. That I can understand.
Yeah, the multiplayer aspect of it is kind of fun, but it does require a little bit of setup. And you kind of... It's one of those games where you really do have to find your own fun, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wish that you could play the release version of No Man's Sky, like I did, just because no base building, no different classes of ships.
Yeah,
that survival was the only difficulty.
Yeah,
so all the original game was having beeping meters telling you to refill stuff and jumping from one system to another.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Fuck,
It was bad.
It was like a hot mess. Like,
Yeah.
and, like, to be honest, like I say, although I spent 70 hours playing it, most of that was just following the main story thread. And once
Which
that
also
ran
wasn't there
out-
on release.
Yeah, exactly. And once that ran out, you're sort of left with the bare bones of the game, and you realise that it's kind of shit. Like, there's just nothing there to do. Like,
It's shit for you, Adrian.
no, it's shit. Like, and anyone who plays it is a fucking moron.
Mouth breathers, yeah.
I think one of the main things, this was it for me, because, and like I thought about it, because in Subnautica, I loved building a base. And I don't normally like base building in games. In No Man's Sky, I hated building a base because you have to leave it behind.
It seems complete. I remember when they added base building, thinking that's like
You don't-
antithetical to the game.
You don't, though, because you can teleport back to previous bases using the portal network now.
but that's bullshit. Like why explore a galaxy just to keep teleporting back to the one base that you built on the one planet early on in the game that has crappy resources?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? Like,
I hear you. I agree. It's tough to justify doing
it's
that.
dumb.
Yeah.
And so that, like, the game seems at odd with itself. It's like, go explore the galaxy, but also build a base in like less than 1% of the game. Like, what? Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Fucking no man's.
Adrian, I have to say, I'm really glad that you settled down now and gotten married and all that shit, because your prior lovers must have been so spurned. Like, fuck me.
Why?
Because when you fall out of love with something, it is visceral.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Yeah, look,
I've been talking about Adrian's like style of like of engorging himself on things and then moving on to the next thing. You're seeing it sort of in action more and more.
yeah, it was fine. I'm glad I bought it on sale. If I'd paid $80 for it, I'd be madder, like way madder.
Yeah.
But the fact that I only paid $40, look, at the end of the day, if like I played it for 70 hours but spent $40, so I can't really complain that much about the experience.
And I would not be surprised if you do at some point go back to it for some reason for a short stint. Like,
I don't know.
I think it's one of those games that you can feel encouraged to go back and take a look at when they add stuff again. I was very unimpressed with it on release, and I've bought it 4 times since then on different platforms and gone back to it a whole bunch of different times for different reasons.
You're an idiot.
Well, each time's like you. I've put a whole bunch of time in each time, and I've enjoyed it. So you know,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
I rebought it a couple of weeks ago because I found a secondhand copy on eBay for $3. I haven't played it, but I got it for $3, so I've got it on my shelf.
I will say it's worthwhile tinkering around with the VR just to see what it's like as well.
That was why I got it. Yeah.
I can understand VR would be cool. Like it would have to take the stars aligning and like all 4 of us for some reason jumping back in at the same time, all building a ranch together and like starting a family and creating little genetic
Ranch.
monster babies. Ram
Ranch. Toaster Ranch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Toaster Ranch.
Camboy Ranch. That would be great.
Camboys, yeah.
Maybe that would.
You just want to make Big Brother in the No Man's Sky universe. That's what you want to do.
Yeah. So, if you want to play No Man's Sky, just be prepared for it to be fun and then not fun.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
But
Well,
that's not I guess.
all right. Well, I just got a couple of things to touch on quickly, and then there's something I want to chat to you, to mostly Matt and Adrian about, because it's something that we've all played. But I'll kick off by wrapping up on what I talked a fair bit about last episode, which was my final thoughts now that I've finished on Persona 5 Royal.
Yay!
So I'm complete now. I've finished the game at my final count was just over 150 hours. I went back in and I got the platinum. So
Well done.
I have achieved pretty much everything I need to do in that game. Maxed out all my social links. I have, through sort of going back to different save files, I've experienced pretty much all of the main endings as well, just to sort of see how different things play out. The first time I played through, I did manage to get the good ending though, so that was good. And so I have spent a lot of time over the last week sort of thinking about where I land on this game overall. And pretty much I have to say that it is one of the greatest games I have ever played. It is fucking amazing. And I would go as far as to say it is one of the top 10 games I've ever played. And I would go as far as to say it is very fucking high on that list of top 10 currently.
Wow.
It's actually knocked out from the spot that it was previously occupying Mass Effect 2. I prefer this to Mass Effect 2.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of how high I praise this game. Yeah. And the reason is because across the board, absolutely everything, gameplay, complexity, story, characters, music, like time investment in it. The themes, holy fucking shit, the themes. I think I actually played this game at a perfect time as well, because some of the themes that they explore, which are really dark and serious in places, are so synonymous with some of the shit that's going on in the world today in a way that doesn't kind of, grind your brain to dust. And it's in a way that makes you sort of really think about things, and makes you appreciate it even more. I think that this game is one of those games that will just leave a lasting impression on me for a long fucking time. So yeah, I could not say anything better about it. The first thing I did when I finished pretty much, and realized how heavy this one was going to land with me, is I basically sent Christian a message and just said, Christian, how the fuck do I play Persona 4?
Yeah.
So yeah. And on that, it seems like we might, based on a pretty heavy, credible rumor we saw today, we might actually be seeing a announcement of a PC release of Persona 4 Golden this weekend.
Which could be very exciting. So you won't need one of these to play it.
Yeah,
Vita TV.
Absolutely. Look, I'd be willing to go through the ringer and fiddle with all the tech to do that. But if it comes out on PC, then that's a snap purchase for me. I'm just like, holy shit, give me more of this. I was sad when it finished. Yeah.
I do feel like I've been thinking about Persona 4 and the idea of you playing it after 5. And I think that Persona is one of those series where the first one you play will always be the most special one to you.
I would expect that.
I totally anticipate you'll play 4 and you'll say, it's fantastic, it's really good, but there were things I liked more about 5. And I'd be like, yep, that's perfectly understandable, because that was me 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 was incredibly special to me, and in my top 10 games of all time, as we discussed a few months back. 5 was fucking amazing, but I think because I played 4 first, it takes the spot for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that one of the reasons why I might land on 5 at the end as well is because of the soundtrack. Because I have listened to the soundtrack for 4. Right. I sort of wanted to sort of see what it was like. And the Persona 5 soundtrack has dethroned Doom as my favorite OST of all time. It is fucking amazing. It is
incredible.
Yeah, and it's consistent too.
It is a better soundtrack than 4. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the way they use it as well. There's a lot of tracks that play in that game that play the first version of the track sort of early on, and then later when shit's getting real, it actually kicks in with the version with the full lyrics, and you're just like, holy moly! I had no idea this song had lyrics. And when you actually listen to it, your mind is blown. So
yeah, and there's like boss versions of songs too.
Yeah.
Even like Shapeshifter, like the sort of chilled in your bedroom music. Like that song, it starts out without lyrics. It's just the melody. And then I think it's the first time you can go outside at night, then the lyrics to Shapeshifter start playing. And even that is just like, this is so fucking good. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So anyway, I won't talk more about that because I think I've said all I need to say. Persona 5, fucking play it. Definitely play Royal. I know exactly what the differences are now in terms of story content. And Christian, I think at some point you might want to actually play the Royal stuff.
I will. When there's a big enough window in my calendar.
The extra semester feels by no way tacked on. It is absolutely as impactful as the main game story. It is hugely it fits perfectly. It happens after the events of the main game as well, which would make it seem very easy to sort of not stick the landing and kind of feel like it's an afterthought. Totally not. It actually fits with everything that's happened so far, and it ends on a really momentous and sort of deep note that I think fits very well. So yeah. So anyway, that all aside, I in preparation for the new season of Destiny kicking off this week, I jumped back in and finished off the stuff that I wanted to do on Destiny 2, and I managed to achieve my 6th seal. So knocked off everything I need for the last season. Got that. That was good. Very happy with that. So I've had a week of actually hitting some pretty good achievements, which I'm happy with.
When do you sleep, Luke?
I don't.
Yeah.
You can't speak, Mr. 70 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That shows that I do on the opposite rotation.
Yeah.
Luke doesn't seem to sleep at all.
No, I do, just only when my body absolutely forces me to. That's it. So, and then the other thing I played, which Matt and I played together, was Minecraft Dungeons. So, and I know that Adrian's played it too, so I wanted to just have a very quick chat about it, sort of before we move on to chatting some news. But I think, Matt, let's start with you. What did you think of Minecraft Dungeons?
Thumbs up. I liked it.
You liked it?
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Adrian, what did you think of Minecraft Dungeons? Oh, that look. That face.
I'd rather pour salt water on my dick and fuck a live toaster than play Minecraft.
Wow. All right. So being a Diablo kind of guy, obviously this was never going to be as complex as those style games.
I know that. I know.
So, but was it something specifically that you found unfun about it, or was it just the fact that it didn't sort of have enough layers or content, or?
Yeah, it's just it's completely vapid. And that's fine if that's what you want. It's not even baby's first Diablo. It's almost like a point and click, learning game. It's that basic, and there's no. You can play the whole game like this, and finish it in one sitting, and then you're like, oh, I just finished the game. It's total bullshit, and there's nothing to do. There's nothing in it. There's no objectives apart from get through this level. There's no breadth to the game apart from here are 10 levels. There's no the story is just there's a bad guy, fight the bad guy. That's literally the story. This is the bad guy. He's trying to be bad. It's worse than a Saturday morning cartoon story. So there's nothing there. The loot. There's no variety in the enemies. There's 10 enemies in the whole game, and that's it. There's no variety in the loot, so you can't claim that it's some kind of loot game because there's 10 different items of loot in the game, and that's it. I'm just so glad it was available on Game Pass, and I didn't pay real money for it because
I think Luke messaged me asking if I wanted to play it for a stream, and I watched a YouTube video. I watched 1 minute of gameplay, and then I knew exactly what kind of game it was, and I feel vindicated because I think I would have agreed completely with Adrian had I played it.
Look, the really cynical part of me, which is almost all of me anyway, you guys know that, but the really, really cynical part of me is just it just feels like a really disgusting cash grab to me. It's just how do we take a label that already exists that people love, Minecraft, and make something new that they will buy? And make something new that they will pay too much money for and do it. And that's exactly what it is. What's the price tag on this game?
It's not that high. I think it's $40 or $50.
$25. No, 25.
25. Okay, it's way less than
It's very fucking cheap.
This is a $5 game at best.
If it wasn't Minecraft, if it was just some original IP that an indie developer created, it would just be forgotten on Steam.
Exactly, and I remember that's a really good point because it's the exact point I remember thinking while playing it. I was like, if this wasn't Minecraft, it would be panned. It would be
or ignored.
Sorry,
or just ignored.
Exactly. If it didn't have the Minecraft label on it, this would no one would even be talking about it. It would be the most trashy. It feels like a mobile game. That's how bad it is. It feels like a mobile game. A bad mobile game is what it feels like.
So, Luke and Matt, tell us why you love this game so much.
I didn't say I loved it.
I don't love it. I didn't say I love it. I think it's good. I think that part of the reason why I enjoyed it is one of the reasons that Adrian hates it so much. And it's because it's fucking mindless. You don't have to think about it. You are just kind of clicking around, it is kind of fun to actually like. There's a limited number of items, but they come with different enchantments. You can mix and match the enchantments that you collect with the armor that you collect to make some really interesting builds. And that was probably the most fun I actually had in the game, was like creating different builds that allowed me to do just ridiculous bullshit while I was actually running around. But it has issues as well. Like it very much is like baby's first Diablo. Like that is absolutely how it kind of plays. And I think that's fully intentional. Like I think this is a game that is targeted at kids. It's intended for kids playing with their parents.
Yeah.
It's got a very clear audience.
For kids, this is fine. Like for like young kids, this is a perfect experience for them, and it has merit on those grounds. But I think that's the only situation where I could say this is a okay product to give someone.
Yeah, but I think that they've actually gone for like, it's not just kids; it's also parents that don't play games. In much the same way that Minecraft is good for parents that don't play games, right? Yeah. Like you can go just pick it up and just play it, and I think Minecraft Dungeons is much the same. It's almost like a gateway video game drug, basically, right?
I'd agree with that. I think
you start playing that, and then you can pop into other things.
That's hard to disagree with. That's fair. Like if you were someone who didn't play video games at all and you wanted to play this game with your kid, yeah, fair enough.
But it would absolutely work for you, right?
That's true.
But I kind of enjoyed it for that as an escape, you know? Like with everything going on at the moment, having a game that I don't have to really think that hard about, that has kind of a really dumb story that's kind of ridiculous. Did you actually finish it, Adrian?
I got to the very last boss fight and was like, why the fuck is this game suddenly impossible? Like,
oh yeah, that fucking boss fight's bullshit.
The game is literally like this, and then the very last battle goes like this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I feel sorry for any kids playing it actually that get to that point.
It's totally see it being bug fixed, because I'm pretty sure it's a bug that is actually making it so hard. It doesn't feel intentional.
Yeah, I agree.
But the final cutscene that plays is so like fucking Saturday morning kids cartoon, My Little Pony bullshit, that it's just basically like I can't help but see it. Like that's exactly what the game's meant to be, you know. Like
was the trick friendship? Was friendship the real?
Yes.
You know what wasn't the real power? Obstacle collision. Because this fucking game is full of it. Like the amount of times you get snagged on the corner of a corridor or on a rock on the ground. Fuck off.
There was an occasion where I died and then respawned in a wall.
Oh.
And couldn't escape.
Ironically, in Minecraft, you couldn't dig your way out of the wall.
I've seen a lot of enemies sort of appear in walls, but it's never happened to me as a player. So yeah,
that happened to me on more than one occasion. It has a couple of little weird issues like that. But overall, like it feels very polished. And it doesn't try to be more. Like I don't think at any point were they trying to advertise like, you know, this is the new Diablo or anything like that. But you're 100% right? Like Torchlight is a game that exists, and quite frankly, people don't give a crap about it because like it is the indie version of Minecraft Dungeons. People care about Minecraft Dungeons because of the fact that it has Minecraft on it. That's just the fucking games industry, right? Like if Torchlight had, you know, if it was not Torchlight, if it was Halo Light, and you were running around as the fucking Master Chief, you know, whacking things, you wouldn't play it, but it would fucking sell, right?
Well, it's like that. It's like the Halo
big IP attached.
That Halo RTS probably would be completely ignored by everybody if it wasn't for the fact that it had Halo attached to it. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The only last thing I want to say, and this is indicative of why I hated it so much, is like there's a hub where you choose your missions from. That hub has 2 vendors, and I was like, oh, cool, vendors, like you know, you can buy items, blah blah blah. There's literally only 2 vendors, and the only thing they do is sell you a random weapon or a random item that is always worse than what you've already got. That's it for the entire game. They serve literally no purpose, and like there's literally no reason to buy anything from them. Why are they there?
Well, it's the only reason you get currency. You have no other reason to get currency.
You have no reason to spend currency in that game. You spend the whole game getting gems. There is no reason to spend them on anything in the game ever. Which just to me is like why
Sounds great.
why did you make this game? Like what is the point of it?
Is it some statement on capitalism?
Possibly.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I guess where I land is probably somewhere between the two of you. So I really enjoyed playing it with Matt, and I think for all the reasons that you mentioned, Matt, like it was a good sort of escapism for the night. We got to, I think multiplayer adds an extra layer of fun to this kind of game too, because you get to run around and hack and slash together, and it's a good time. But for me, this game has no replay value. Like,
oh god, no. I installed it the moment I was done. Like. I will not be going back to it, but the time that I spent with it, like the short 8 hours maybe, I enjoyed it.
One thing it definitely succeeded in doing, and you said this a couple of times as well, Matt, is it got me really wanting to play Minecraft. So
yeah,
mostly because there's a lot of stuff in dungeons that I want to see in Minecraft, like some of the extra sort of bits of scenery and stuff that they put in Minecraft dungeons, like some really little basic stuff as well, like running around some of the underground areas, like in the actual caves. Like they had these really cool looking crystals and some of the different contraptions and stuff in the sort of foundry areas and that sort of stuff. Like it all seemed like it could easily exist in Minecraft, like just as aesthetic changes to some of the standard blocks. And I really hope that this year, after they finish the Nether update stuff, which is coming out any week now, that the next big sort of overhaul area they do for the game, I hope it's like an underground sort of thing where they look at dungeons properly and, rehash the way they work in Minecraft and put some of this stuff in. I think that'd be amazing. So gives them an opportunity to add new blocks, new creatures, new sort of randomly generated dungeon formations. I think that sort of stuff would fit really, really well in Minecraft proper. But that's probably the biggest thing I got out of it. So I'm glad I bought it. I don't regret purchasing it. I enjoyed playing it, but I probably won't go back to it unless I'm playing with someone. So yeah.
Yeah. You say that you fall between the two of us, but I really need to stay here. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm not a fan of the game, right? Like, I just see what it is.
Yeah.
So we're in your top 10 games of all time, Matt. Like 4, 3,
somewhere down in like the 60s or 70s, maybe.
Wow.
Pretty high.
The biggest insult to injury was the news that came out a few days later, like Minecraft Dungeons will be adding this new content. And I'm like, fuck off.
That was already that was advertised on purchase. They had like an additional edition of the game where you could get the first 2 DLCs as part of it. So anyway, yeah. All right, well, let's talk some news. We got other stuff going on that's actually noteworthy and worth chatting about. And I didn't mention this before because it sort of comes into big events over the last couple of days. So there's been some Destiny 2 shit going on, like quite a bit actually. Matt and I stayed up to the wee hours a couple of nights ago to watch their very first in-game live event, which, from a technical perspective, was really good. It was bad until it got good. Yeah, from a lead up and I guess communicating and setting expectations perspective, maybe not the greatest.
It was not good that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Was it literally this? You stood in the tower and watch something fall out of the sky for like an hour, and then it explodes, and that's it.
No, it was worse than that.
It was worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
yeah.
It was worse than that. So basically, you spent the first 30 minutes sitting around waiting to see something happen.
Yep.
And nothing happens, and so everybody was making the joke like Bungie forgot to flick the switch to turn the event on.
Yeah. But it's like what they were waiting to do is to make sure that everybody didn't miss out. They wanted everybody to be logged in, so they gave an extra.
If you're not there on time, sucks to be you.
I 100% agree, Christian. 100% agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially since that the thing that people would be turning up late for was 45 minutes of watching these lasers slowly move in towards a thing. So you still just stood around waiting.
Slow-moving lasers.
Well, basically, this is in orbit, so it's stuff like spanning like hundreds and thousands of kilometers, sort of, towards.
Yeah.
Even then,
lights.
Yeah.
From a realism, from a sci-fi realism perspective, it was probably more accurate. From an entertainment perspective,
it was fucking awful. Yeah. But then when stuff finally happened, it was awesome, and it lasted for like 3 minutes. And that was it. That was the end of it. Like, you basically, like, 90% of the event was sitting around waiting for the event to happen. And then it happens, and it's like, well, that was cool. And then you logged off and went to bed because that was basically it. If the event was basically like, hey, log on at this time, something's going to happen, and then within 15 minutes it was done, it would have been 100% better. It would have been like, fuck, that was awesome. Like, that was really cool. But that's not what we got. We got like a freaking hour and a half of sitting around waiting for lasers.
It was no giant Travis Scott teleporting you around and destroying the world and making you fly.
Nothing like that.
It was no in-game live concert. It was none of that stuff. So the thing I'm glad about, I'm glad that Bungie did this, because the feedback they got, and I think the way that the general sort of public reacted in terms of them being very positive about them having a live event, but very negative in terms of how it was executed for the length of time that it took. They're definitely going to do more of this sort of stuff, and I think the next one they do will learn a lot from this and do something actually quite cool. So if there's any company that can do it well in terms of how it actually fits with the world and the story and that kind of stuff, I think Bungie I can trust to do it. They kind of needed to have a miss to have a hit later, I think. So,
you know what'd be cool is like if they started off the next event in the same way, and then they just fucking spawned a shit ton of enemies in the middle of the ground.
That'd be cool.
It was like, and then everyone
It would have been like, if that shit happened, like if it was basically like, hey, you know, we're standing here in the tower watching these fucking slow ass moving lasers, and then it's suddenly like, you know, enemies spawn inside the one safe location in the game. It'd be fucking amazing.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Incredible.
Or they kill everyone that comes to the event. Like everyone, all the characters die and like they get wiped and they lose.
Crop the hard drive.
How good would that be?
Maybe not that. So
I think it'd be really cool if they framed it like a celebration. Like there was some Destiny like Christmas thing, like come celebrate Spacemas in the arena, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And then shit happened. That'd be cool.
That'd be really good.
Yeah.
But given the news that kind of came out last night, I do think this was an event as a test run for that system.
Yeah.
Not so much like meant to be like the shining glory of, you know, hey, we're going to outdo all the other live service games or anything like that.
Yeah,
given what they're actually kind of setting up for the future seasons and such. So
the good news was that Bungie actually did a live stream last night to chat about the future of Destiny and what's coming for the fall expansion, well, fall in the US, and the next season as well. This is the first time that they've actually not given any information on what the next season is going to be about until like they literally did this live stream an hour before the new season was due to start. So we knew nothing about what was going to be happening in season 12, I want to say. 11? 11, yeah. Until like an hour beforehand, which, you know, you can take that one of two ways. You can take that as, you know, this looks bad because we don't know what's coming, so is there any reason to get excited about playing Destiny right now? But on the other hand, you could be like, the fact that this is all shrouded in mystery is actually really exciting, and I was probably more on that side, and I'm glad I was, because as it turns out, it's pretty cool. So their presentation, which lasted for about just over half an hour, which was done by Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy, who are the Destiny director and the game runner. I forget their exact titles, but they're kind of like the two head honchos of Destiny development. They sort of sat in their studio, very sort of social distancing, sort of distance apart. You know, it was they had a bit of sort of preamble around how weird it is at the moment, you know, game development with everything going on around the world and that sort of stuff. Then they got straight into it and showed trailer gameplay, detailed information on systems. As far as the actual sort of half hour or so presentation time goes, they fucking killed it. Like, it was awesome. They showed some really cool shit, and it got me very excited about the future of Destiny. They showed not only what's happening this fall, so the next major expansion, but they actually showed what they're planning on doing for the next two of those major expansions. So it's 3 years worth of expansion information. Only rough themes and names for 2021 and 2022, but it does give a very big indication of what the next sort of major story arc is going to be. And of course, it's all about the darkness. It's all about the pyramid ships finally arriving and like a new foe that's basically going to fuck shit up everywhere. And that all started pretty much this morning with Season 11, which is Season of the Arrivals, where you've actually got pyramid ships, smaller versions of them starting to appear on planets, sort of kicking off public events. There's a huge one that's landed on Io now, and there's a lot of sort of stuff going on with that and the darkness and different characters kind of starting to learn more about it and experimenting with it. But a couple of the big things that they announced was they have got a new class getting added to the game, essentially, like a new it's not just a new super class, like a new super subclass. They're actually adding an entire new damage type to the game as well. So there's going to be Arc, Void, Solar, and now a fourth type. Stasis, which is actually going to be one of the darkness powers. So they're actually going to allow Guardians to start wielding the evil energies and stuff, which is really cool. Been rumored for a long time.
They missed an opportunity to get me back into Destiny. They made it ice. They made it frost.
Well, you say that, but the stasis powers look exactly like fucking ice powers, Adrian.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
It is ice powers. It's just called stasis. Yeah. In much the same way that lightning powers are called arc. And fire powers are solar. Yeah.
Oh, well, looks like I'll be playing Destiny again.
Pretty much. It looks real good too. The new location, which is coming, is Europa, which is one of is it Saturn's moons?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
also icy, so that fits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a location that's completely new. It's not like a revamped one like the moon was. This is like brand new that they've had in the works of design for a long, long time. So it was actually going to be one of the original Destiny 1 locations that never actually made it to the game. Jupiter's moons. That's right. Jupiter's in the background. Yeah. So lots of interesting shit's kicking off with that. They launched a brand new dungeon like today, which is I jumped in and had a bit of a look at it, and I watched some content online. This new dungeon is fucking awesome. It is a absolute acid trip of a thing, and I'm just going to show like a very, very short clip from it just to give you a bit of an idea. It's called Prophecy. And basically, it's themed around the Nine. So if you know anything about the Nine in Destiny, they're kind of like these weird enigmatic aliens that seem to know a lot more about what's going on in the universe than they sort of let on. And, they know more about the darkness sort of as a race sort of encroaching. So the idea behind this dungeon is you basically jump in and you're trying to ask them for information about what's going on, but they kind of test you through a series of trials before they'll actually talk to you, and that's what the dungeon's built around. But it's got tons of cool shit. Like, you've got Sparrow sort of areas in it, which it's basically like Rainbow Road in a Destiny dungeon. Like, you're trying to stay on these really narrow paths in like the middle of space. They've got these really cool sort of rooms where like you literally flip gravity and you start jumping from the floor onto walls and then onto the roof and shit like that. It's awesome. So yeah, for a free dungeon, this one's available to everybody as well. Like, it's not just a only paid content people one. So very, very happy with that. That was a cool addition.
If they're turning Destiny into Tron, I can get on board with that.
There's some very Tron bits in there. Yeah.
Visual. Like, if I can be Tron in Destiny, Ice and Tron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's pretty cool. So, lots of good stuff coming. But the biggest thing that shocked me and Matt as well, I think, from our chats, is they're doing this new approach to content, because as the game's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it's becoming a bit more unwieldy from a development perspective. So they've decided that they've reached the point now where the game's getting so huge that they need to start vaulting some of the old content. So they've actually created this new sort of thing called the Destiny Content Vault.
DCV. Yep.
DCV or whatever they said.
Yeah.
Now, my understanding of the Destiny Content Vault is it's basically a vault in kind of... It's a branding thing. Like, I don't think this is actually content that's going to be sidelined into a place where you can selectively play it. I think it's like literally taken out of the game. But it's taken out of the game with the understanding that because it's still sort of good to go to a certain extent, they could add it back in again later for different reasons. So it's kind of, in readiness to sort of put it one way. But the really cool thing about that vaulting approach is, yes, they're going to be taking things away from the game, but they've also said that they're basically bringing a whole bunch, if not all of the Destiny 1 content into the vault as well, so they can actually put some of that into Destiny 2. And that's going to start happening later this year. They're actually going to bring the Cosmodrome back, which is one of those big locations on Earth where a lot of the original sort of strikes and stuff took place. Like 3 of the original strikes are coming back, which were very, very popular ones from what I understood. They're going to be upgraded to work in Destiny 2. They're bringing back next year the Vault of Glass raid, and they're dating it for Destiny 2. It's like the first big raid they ever did, and it's so famous for being fucking awesome. So
I when I was on Twitter and I was about to actually tweet, like, they're talking about this Destiny content vault, they're talking about bringing back Destiny 1 content. I swear to God, if they say they're going to bring back Vault of Glass, and I was literally in the process of typing that when they said we're bringing back Vault of Glass.
Yeah,
it's like, fuck yes. Like, there's so many good raids in Destiny 1 that the idea of bringing them back. I've seen some friends that are really like the idea of the Destiny content vault and the idea of taking content away from players is a really unpopular thing, but it's not being deleted. It's not being taken off the face of the planet. Like, it's not, we can't go back to those things ever. I'm quite excited about it because it basically means, like, okay, so when we get the first season after this expansion, we'll have all those planets, but then the next season they might decide that, like, Nessus is going to bed for a bit. We're going to bring back Io, but now it's different because we've actually changed the content in it because of the story events that have taken place. And so the vault just basically allows them to move stuff in and out.
It's a sidebar, basically. Yeah.
And like the Leviathan's one of the locations going away, and it's full of raids. Like, it's basically just a whole bunch of raids that are getting put to rest. But it means that those can come back later and be seasonal content, you know? Like, this raid's going to be put to bed, Leviathan's coming back, and they're adding transmog to the game, so you'll want to run Leviathan to get all the really cool Leviathan gear to unlock all that transmog before it gets put to bed again. And so, like, I think that's really cool. I think that basically means that every single season there's going to be a new reason to hop back in. It'll be like there's old content to go back and finish out sets for, and there's also new content that they're adding. So
they've done this to a certain extent in World of Warcraft as well. Yeah.
As somebody who's always on the cusp of saying, maybe I will play Destiny 2, but then never does, the less content in the game for me, the better.
Yeah.
Because if I ever actually do end up playing Destiny 2, the more simplified it is, I'm happier with that.
It definitely is better for the onboarding, for sure. And I think it's really good when they have sort of new seasonal content as well, which, you know, ultimately they have quest lines that require you to go to a whole bunch of different locations to do different errands to sort of follow a path. And going back to areas that have no relevance to the current story just because they happen to exist in the game and they should be used is crap. Like, I'm really happy for them to shelve some of that stuff and force you to sort of focus on the areas that actually matter in terms of the current narrative, as opposed to just like ticking the box because it's still there. You know, we have to get some use out of it, kind of thing. So I think what they're doing is, you know, it may be tricky for some people to get their head around in terms of the taking away aspect, but the fact that they're giving back at the same time as well with what they're doing, and the fact that it's some of the greatest hits of Destiny 1, I'm so in on that. I think it's the best fucking solution that they could have come up with. I'm very impressed with what they're doing. Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm actually so excited, though, is because of that event that they ran, and because of the fact that I think it was a test. All of the planets that this season are now being invaded by the darkness are all the planets that are getting put in the vault.
Yeah.
So I kind of suspect that over the course of the season, we're going to see access to planets removed because we're just getting pushed back by the darkness, basically. Like, hey, yeah, Mars, all that stuff you were doing on Mars, can't fucking do it anymore. Mars got blown up, you know, like, or they do something like that. Like, kind of like what they did with World of Warcraft when Cataclysm came out. And if you were on the servers at the point where the Cataclysm actually hit, it was this fucking awesome ass event where it's like the world's actually changed, you know?
Yeah.
So doing something like that when they're removing content, I think it's just gonna be so cool. Like, just to have a reason for the world to breathe is really cool, I think.
Definitely that living game that they've been talking about. Yeah. Anyway, that's Destiny 2. That's all I want to say. I think they got some really cool stuff coming, so good time to be playing it.
Yeah. On some less good news, but like also unprecedented news in kind of the industry. I find it really fascinating. So the team that was working on Kerbal Space Program 2 got sniped, not literally, by Take-Two Interactive. So basically, the entire team got job offers in the middle of making Kerbal Space Program 2, who they're making for Take-Two Interactive. That's their publisher. Take-Two Interactive started sending them job offers saying, hey, come work at Take-Two Interactive. Your studio's not going to exist for much longer. And so all of these team members are like, what the fuck's going on? And it turns out that basically Take-Two had decided, without telling the team yet, that they were cutting the game's budget. They were basically like, nope, we're done. We're not giving you any more money. To instead start hiring all of the people that were working on the game. So this is actually the first big article that Jason Schreier's actually wrote for Bloomberg. And it's basically like this look inside the studio and what exactly happened. So the studio's called Star Theory Games. They weren't responsible for the original Kerbal Space Program. Apparently, like another studio made Kerbal Space Program, sold the rights to Take-Two. Take-Two gave the rights to this studio, and now they're buying the workers from the studio rather than buying the studio itself. Yeah, it's really fucking bizarre. Like, nobody's seen a publisher do something like this before, because that's a real dick move.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's basically a matter of like a whole bunch of people are just now losing their jobs, or getting snapped up by this larger publisher, and they're only a small team. They're only a small indie studio. Basically, they don't have the ability to kind of push back against it. But yeah, like I find it just mega fascinating and super unfortunate for the team. Apparently, Take-Two managed to hire about half of them. The other half refused the job offers, and basically now that studio's dead. Like, there's nothing they can do. Like, they lost the rights to the game, they don't have the budget, and so it's basically over for them.
So chronologically, Kerbal 2 was announced like at the last E3, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was like the PC gaming show.
It's still getting worked on by the developers that Take-Two poached into their own studio.
So what I mean to say is I assume all of this happened after that announcement, is what the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. It's fairly recent, I understand. So, yeah, but really messed up. Like, it's so weird and hyper capitalist, you know, just like, oh, we don't like how you're running it as a small studio, so we're just going to hire all the people from your studio and also cut your budget so they don't have a choice, you know?
Yeah.
It's either continue working at this studio that's not going to exist for much longer, or come work for us where you won't get all the same rights and privileges that you currently get from your small indie studio. Like, I think that was one of the things they were saying in the article, like health benefits, for example. Like, they had more while working at Star Theory Games than they do working for Take-Two. So it's cheaper for Take-Two to poach them. So
yeah.
Yep. They should have crunched.
They should have crunched more. God.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of messed up, Christian, what do you got for us?
Yes. So I wanted to talk about something that's happened. I'm going to talk about something that's happening on Twitch, this very platform that we're live streaming on now, if you're watching the stream. And that's that recently, out of nowhere, there's been a string of copyright notices, like takedown notices, that are being sent to streamers for having licensed music playing in their clips, in their VODs on their channel. So a lot of streamers, when they're playing games, like to put their own music on, just like through Spotify or YouTube. And if it's been sort of established for a long time that that's acceptable to do, no one's really been punished for it. It's just the case that your VODs, so like the recordings of your streams, will be automatically muted if they contain licensed music. Yeah. So that's the way it has been. They're able to detect automatically if you're playing licensed music, and they'll mute your VODs. That hasn't applied to clips though, and clips are like sort of 30-second little highlights that anybody can make. So a viewer can make a clip of a certain segment on a stream, and the streamer themselves doesn't have any control of that.
And the idea being that the clip is dynamically made from the live content before those algorithms have had a chance to run, right?
Yeah. But I mean, theoretically, Twitch could mute the clips too if it had the licensed music, because the clip is still a video within Twitch's own video service. Yeah, but they haven't been. But then, and these notices have come out of nowhere, and they are striking clips from as early as like 2017. So there are streamers who have years worth of clips and it's a 3-strike permaban situation. So suddenly, out of nowhere, you could have years worth of clips in your back catalog, and then you could get 1, 2, 3 striked and just get permabanned for something that you did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's pretty messed up, yeah. And it's all coming from the Recording Industry Association of America, which, you know, is a massive recording label that manages a ton of huge artists. And it's gotten like everyone just super scared. All streamers are like really hesitant to play music now, which sucks because as somebody who watches a lot of Twitch, just Hearthstone streams really, I only watch streamers if they're playing music because the experience for me, that's a huge part of it. It's boring to me if I'm just watching someone play the game and I'm just hearing the game noise. I need the music there for it to be entertaining for me because it's almost like a radio. I put on Twitch in the background while I'm doing chores. I listen to it while I'm going off to sleep. Twitch is always like a side background thing for me. It's never the primary thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the music is vital to that. And so far, no one has received the takedown notices for the content that they're live streaming. It's only been the clips made later. So people are saying, oh, maybe if you just, no one makes clips of your licensed music, you'll be safe. But there's a worry that they could extend into, sending the notices while people are live streaming. And on a 3-strike permaban situation, when this is people's income, a lot of these streamers, it's their job, it's their primary income. It's not something that they want to take risks on.
Yeah. That's bad. I mean, YouTube was bad for a while because of this sort of stuff going on, but this is a whole other level than that from what I can see. Yeah.
Yeah. It's especially the fact that it's been dredged up from years ago, that for the longest time it's been acceptable. And I've read into it, and apparently like the technicality is legally it's something that they do have a right to do. And it's just something that Twitch has never been really enforcing before. So there's murmurings that maybe the Recording Industry Association is either threatening to or is suing Twitch over this. And so the Twitch are actually having to enforce it. But that's more speculation at this point.
Yeah. Because I know the big issue for a lot of streamers seems to really be like, there's no way for them to quickly and easily go through and remove the offending clips. Like it's just so slow and buggy. Yep,
definitely.
Because I think that a lot of people, this is something that was always going to happen because of the fact that like it is basically copyright law and it's bullshit. Like it sucks. But this is just something that these record labels fully have the right to do. It's why it's been such an issue on YouTube for the longest fucking time.
The revenue model's different though. Like I imagine that one of the things that would mean that streamers are probably not that worried about deleting a bunch of clips though is because it's not like they're making money off subsequent views like you do on VODs.
They won't lose revenue.
Yeah.
Whereas on YouTube, if somebody copyright claims your stuff, they just start taking your cash. Like the video doesn't get deleted; they just start earning your money. Whereas on Twitch, like you earn your money while you're live, and so those clips are expendable. It's easy enough to go through and delete them.
The channel's not if it gets banned.
Exactly right. So like the concern is about losing the channel. But I wouldn't be surprised, like especially as technology gets better, eventually Twitch is going to have the algorithm running while you're streaming, and it'll basically be a matter of like don't play audio while you're going. And certain games just won't be able to play. Like some people were saying, like Beat Saber, every single Beat Saber video is getting copyright claimed.
Like that sucks.
You have to cut it. You have to cut everything about Beat Saber. Yep, GTA 5 is another one.
Yep.
So for now, you can expect a lot of people to be listening to like 24/7 lo-fi hip-hop channels and like classical jazz and that sort of stuff, just because it's not like licensed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Study music.
Study music. It's good to listen to.
Yeah.
you know what's the best study music is the Sims build soundtrack. I watched like a little video, not a documentary, like a little like informative video about how they created a new style of music for the Sims. Before they took jazz piano and new age and made new age jazz piano just for the Sims.
Nice.
And now it's so integral to the Sims' success that every sequel has had to have that style of music in it.
Huh.
That's awesome.
That makes a weird kind of sense, actually, because the game is totally like that. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go.
Persona 5, that's good study music. I've studied to Persona 5 music.
Fucking A. Yeah. It's good everything music, frankly. But, all right. Well, anyway, let's kick on into our main topic tonight, and it'll be probably a little shorter than our usual main topics, given how long we've run on some of the other stuff tonight. But it's been good. A lot of game chat this week. I like it. a lot. But because we're under a bit of time crunch now, we're going to put ourselves under pressure and talk about exactly that. We're going to chat about pressure mechanics in games.
Cue David Bowie's Pressure. Under Pressure.
Under Pressure.
Oh, we've been banned.
So
Not the way I sung it. We haven't.
no, bad. This is one that I sort of had pop into my head that I've been wanting to bring up on the show for a little while, because there's been some key games this year in particular that I've played that have had really interesting and innovative ways to put players under some kind of like carefully designed and orchestrated stress while they're playing in order to sort of elicit a certain emotional response from the game environment that they're going through. And there's lots of different ways that games do this, and I thought it would be fun to chat about a few of them tonight. But I mean, just Matt and I were recently chatting about, when we were playing through Man of Medan, like a really simple but interesting idea of the pressure mechanics that you might see in a game like that is, instead of having jump scares, they had sort of like a mechanical equivalent, which is the abrupt QTEs that you sometimes had to navigate through. So, so when you're given like the means to change the outcome of something fairly fucking pivotal in the game's story sequence by you either succeeding or failing at a task that sort of gets thrown up in your face all of a sudden, that kind of mechanic can put you under a fair bit of pressure and certainly elicit a particular feeling while you're playing, usually one of rage after the fact.
Yeah.
So,
there is nothing worse than being like, oh, I'm watching a cutscene, put your controller down, then suddenly it's like, press A to not fuck up, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that but that's not really pressure, it's basically just badly designed, right?
Yeah,
like,
well, that's an example.
If a game makes you feel like
that's an example of probably the low end that we're talking about, because there's definitely going to be like good ways of doing this and bad ways of doing this. Like, I think probably one of my favorite old time examples of pressure mechanics, and this is a classic, and it's been sort of reiterated in many different ways from games since, is actually the very, very opening of Super Metroid, my favorite game, because the pressure mechanic that you have in that game really sort of sets the tone from that point onwards, where like you in the very first sort of main room of the game, you literally get one of the biggest baddies, like bosses of the sort of the world at that point sort of sprung on you, and you're like, fuck, I'm fighting like the end boss in this very first part of the game, which of course is designed for you to not actually succeed at. It's just part of the way that it's built. And then you actually have to run and escape from a exploding facility while a bomb countdown's going. And that's the very beginning of the game. So the very beginning of the game just ratchets up the tension and sort of the adrenaline by really sort of getting you panicked and moving, and then they sort of kick off from there. And I think it's a really, really cool high octane way to sort of kick off the game, and that sort of combined pressure mechanic is great for sort of giving you that feel before you get stuck in proper. So I think
and ending the game,
and absolutely, and it does it again at different times through as well. But there's lots of different ways that different games do this, and I think it'd be kind of fun to talk about some of the really good ones and bad ones, and maybe some of our favorites and stuff like that. So. Yeah. So when I say pressure mechanics, what do you guys sort of think of, sort of off the top of your head? So maybe some of the more notorious ones that have stuck with you.
I think having just played a bunch of survival games, obviously thirst and hunger and that kind of survival mechanic is that kind of long, slow pressure that gets applied over the entire experience rather than like a burst. And I generally hate that kind of mechanic.
Me too.
Like, I don't like it. And even... I don't know. I can forgive Subnautica almost any sin. So, I mean, it almost doesn't register for me. But usually that kind of mechanic just sucks balls. Like, you play video games for escapism, not to be like regularly reminded that you need to work. Like,
yeah,
because it is work. Yeah. Like, it's never fun managing that kind of pressure. So, I don't know. I think going with what you just described, like I think those bursts of pressure can be fun and exhilarating, and you get like a sense of reward. You get that endorphin rush from it. But I think mainly in survival type games, having that overall pressure is sucky. The other one that just springs to mind quickly is the kind of pressure in XCOM that comes from this like top down pressure. So the kind of pressure you feel in Darkest Dungeon or XCOM, this kind of sense of overwhelming dread. And like you have to kind of be up to the minute. And just when you're pulling ahead because you've just built a new resource or you've just unlocked a new part of the game quickly pulls you back into line and starts applying that pressure again. It's
that minute to midnight sort of doom sort of
pressure. Yeah. And I do tend that I kind of enjoy a bit more because at least you're making progress as you go along.
And each step of the way, you're not like when you're managing your base in XCOM, there's not a literal timer ticking down every second, is there?
No, it jumps like pretty randomly. Like it'll like there is a bar and it will just randomly like fill up every now and then, and you're like, "Fuck! I thought I was safe, and now it's just gone boop boop boop," and you're like,
But in each individual moment, you can take your time.
Yeah.
Unlike with Subnautica, the constant ticking of the bars did get to me a little bit. In particular, when I was like reading lore. Like I'd open up my databank thing and I was like reading and just knowing that that doesn't pause the game and my hunger bar was slowly going down. I just like when I'm just doing nothing, I don't like to feel under pressure at that point. Like I don't like to chilling in my base. I shouldn't feel like I'm still under pressure.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I like on Subnautica, I'm actually gonna make a bit of a joke here and say I actually quite liked the water pressure mechanic in Subnautica.
So being literally under pressure for
literally underwater. Like you have like this pressure of like, okay, so I'm in a vehicle that can handle pressure at this depth. I've just fallen down a crevice and now I'm way deeper down than I should be, and you're hearing this creaking, groaning of the vehicle that you're in slowly crunching in around you.
So it's like an unknown risk management pressure sort of thing.
It's basically like, oh shit, like how the fuck do I get out of here? And there was at least 2 occasions in my Subnautica playthrough where I was in my prawn with I had my grappling hook and everything like that, and I was literally just like panic jumping trying to get out of this area that I'd fallen into because of the fact that I could just hear it. Yeah,
that's the problem. If you'd been a scared player, that wouldn't have happened.
But yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Christian.
I was going to say, I know we're still talking about Subnautica, but I found that literal water pressure mechanic, I think that it like destroys your vehicle too quickly. I found it was like when you're safe at 899 meters, you go to 901 meters, and then your Seamoth just like crumples like paper. And I feel like there could have been a bit more gradation where like you can take a risk and go a bit deeper for like a minute, but then you're hearing the creaking and the crunching around you, and like they could have like woven more pressure, more feeling of pressure into that rather than it being so sudden.
The weirdest thing about that is that if you get out of the submarine at that pressure, you're fine.
You're fine.
You are
exactly. It's so weird.
Anyway,
I would have liked it if because there's a suit that you make that is meant to be like an armored suit. It would have been amazing if that actually had a pressure depth attached to it, right? Like if you get out of your vehicle while you're in this armored suit, your vehicle can handle that depth, but you're fucked. Like if you get out at any depth, like you would just be completely destroyed. I think that would add a lot more to the fear. Because otherwise, you're in your vehicle at that depth, and it's basically like, well, okay, guess the vehicle's fucked. Goodbye.
Then warpers would be the worst thing in the game.
Yeah. When they pull you out of the vehicle, that would be fucking terrifying, right?
I know.
Subnautica devs, listen in. This is a great idea.
Subnautica.
This isn't the Subnautica cast. But dovetailing from Subnautica, still in the underwater realm, the very first feeling I can ever remember of being under pressure in a video game was Sonic the Hedgehog 2, within the underwater sections, when there'd be a countdown in the air bubbles, you go whoop whoop, and you'd eat the air.
Okay,
whoop, whoop. That was so terrifying as a kid. I hated that. It was it was awful.
Yeah, that sucked.
I'm going to spoil my point right now about all of this because I didn't write down about specific games like. But 100% of the time, if you want to remove pressure, mute the game. And like 90% of the pressure will go away, right? Because the terrifying thing in Sonic is that sound. Like it's the music, the slowly climbing music. The same thing goes in Subnautica. Like, oh, there's creepy monsters around. If I can't hear them, they're not scary. Right? I can't hear my vehicle crumpling in around me. That's fine. I'm okay. Play any horror game with the audio off. It's no longer scary. Like audio is just kind of the key thing that adds intensity.
Huge part of it.
Yeah,
but I mean, there are other mechanics that aren't exempt from.
I got one.
You can't mute. Like quick time events are still put you under pressure even if they're muted. And
Sorry, I got an old one like you, Christian. Super Mario 3 with the auto scrolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good call.
Actually, yeah.
There's pressure.
Super Mario auto-scrolling might have been before Sonic.
That actually
yeah.
brought up one that I was going to mention too, Adrian, because I think that a really sort of interesting pressure mechanic that happens in other games too, and the most recent example I can think of is actually Ori and the Will of the Wisps, where the world around you is changing while you're trying to navigate it in a way that puts you on very uncertain footing. So you don't know what you're doing. Like, you feel very uncertain of things that were, until a moment ago, like safe spots kind of thing. So, like, classic in Ori is, like, there's a number of sort of chase sequences, and this is the same in Ori and the Blind Forest as well. They've done it in both games. And whether you're sort of running away from, like, this huge torrent of water, like, flooding through sort of like an underground cavern system, or, like, outrunning, like, a volcano erupting and lava just sort of spewing out everywhere. There's one in the Will of the Wisps where you're actually like running away from like one of the big boss creatures that's literally chasing you down. You have to hide behind different bits of scenery and stuff so that it doesn't get you. Sort of find safe spots and moments to sort of, duck out and run to the next bit as the world's sort of changing around you, and, bits of debris and wood are crumbling, and the log you were just standing on suddenly falls away and you're like, fuck, I have to move. That kind of stuff is very much the same sort of thing. Yeah.
I quite like that in games where when there are moments that go, okay, all of the skills you've been learning, now you need to execute them perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, I like that.
Yeah.
Like in platformers where suddenly there's a moment where you better know how to double jump and dash and roll and dodge, like show the game that you've mastered those skills. I like that, as long as it's balanced properly.
They're usually reserved for boss fights, and I like the fact that in games like this, they're not the boss fight. It's almost like a boss encounter, but the encounter is with the environment as opposed to like a singular enemy. Yeah.
Platform boss fights.
It's like Rayman Legends.
Yeah.
There were like music levels where you spend the whole, it's like Sonic style, you spend the whole level running, and the whole thing is just like platform challenge.
Yeah. Well, speaking of chases, like in Black Mesa, when I played it recently, I'd actually mentioned that there's a chase scene in that with this creature called Gargantua, and it's this like 30-minute long chase sequence. It's freaking brilliant. It's terrifying. 30 minutes, like, with breaks, like you have little breaks in between to get like a breather, and then you have to go back out, and you're like, it's still out there. You can see it clawing through the holes in the wall and everything, and you're like, oh fuck, like I have to run after it again. But when it starts getting closer to you, like your first-person shooter, you're focused on the area ahead of you. You've got these obstacles and such you need to clear out, but that thing's behind you when it's gaining ground because it moves faster than you do. And so like they do this screen shake thing where the screen shakes more the closer it gets, and so you can tell how far away it is from you. Even without like audio currently playing, like you can kind of tell like this thing is right behind me, or it will catch up and it will smack you in the back of the head. You get flung forward like 50 feet into a wall, and like that shit's scary. It's scary as shit. And you're basically just looking around for like, how the hell do I get out of here? What's my exit? There's other movements in the game. Yeah, they're a little bit like that. Yeah.
It's like the shark in Raft. Like,
yeah, a
little bit.
It's like floor is lava kind of thing, where like
you there's a certain amount of time that like once that passes, you're just in a lot of trouble. So you're struggling and scrambling to sort of get back on top and that sort of
or
stuff.
just sort of Christian the Snake in Sekiro.
Yes,
like doing that segment of the game. It's like you're like, oh shit, quick, get into the cave before it like.
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost like this is an area of danger that I am knowingly entering, right?
Yeah.
And the moment that I pass this precipice into this space, I'm gonna have a limited amount of time to do what I need to do to escape, basically.
That's like the word precipice.
It's interesting, like, because moments like that put players under pressure can stress out a lot of people, and there are some people who really get turned off by moments like that. And I wanted to talk about, now that it's been mentioned, Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake. It really stressed people out, and some people enjoyed that and thought it made it exhilarating, but other people, it genuinely like dampened their enjoyment of the game. And there was a bit of like criticism online by certain people saying that it shouldn't be as stressful, or it should be a shorter moment. And then in Resident Evil 3 Remake, I know that with Nemesis, there's only like a short section in the game, very short section, where Nemesis acts like Mr. X. And for the rest of the game, he appears in much briefer moments that are like mini boss fights, and doesn't have that same feeling of pressure. And then Yeah, and then people have said actually that's not fun. It doesn't feel like a threat. It doesn't feel scary. And so there's a good
Trying to find the
YouTube
balance.
video about it. Yeah, trying to find that balance. That we mentioned on our YouTube episode, Game Maker's Toolkit. He did a video recently called "Should Game Designers Listen to Negative Feedback?" It's one of the examples he uses where a lot of people said Mr. X is too stressful. They listened to the feedback and kind of neutered Nemesis because of it, and then made for arguably a worse experience.
Yeah,
it's tough. When you can see the strings.
That Mr. X pressure, that's one of the finest examples of pressure, I think, in my mind. That kind of like, there's an inevitability to it, like where you can't do anything about it.
Yep. It's like Pyramid Head in Silent Hill. Same sort of thing.
It's very similar, yeah.
It's the same thing. I haven't played Silent Hill,
Yeah.
But like Matt, you mentioned chase scenes before, and ones that are like actually like a proper fleshed out chase scene that has like a lot of different sort of moving parts. I think that's a fantastic example of one that maybe is not as terrifying, but it's a different kind of pressure that sort of blends with that adrenaline because you're actually having such a really friggin' good time at the same time.
Yeah.
You're still having to think quick and move quick. And the one for me that stands out as one of the highlights is there's this massive chase sequence, and I know this isn't the only one of these games that has one, but this is the one that I know best, in Uncharted 4. So in A Thief's End, there's this huge chase sequence where you're in like a chase. You start off on like a motorcycle with your brother, and you end up sort of hopping onto different sort of vehicles and, getting in fist fights with dudes that are chasing you down and gunning ones down on other trucks that are chasing you. There's this huge sort of part of the chase that ends up like on a bridge and you're swinging off like cranes to try and swing around onto the next thing. It's like something out of, what was it, Terminator 3. They had that huge sort of chase scene in the middle of the movie. And just
sort of adventure pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's that sort of unpredictability, and yes, if you've done the chase scene a number of times, you know how some of the choreographing works, so it doesn't have quite the same impact the second or third time. But the first time you experience that, like the pressure that you feel to not mess up, and you don't know what is going to be required of you next because you've got no idea what's about to be thrown at you. That kind of pressure is exciting and really sort of fun in a positive way, I think. Yeah.
The way they actually add pressure in those scenes, again, other than the music and such, like there's this whole thing. I forget the actual term for it in film. Where you kind of like zoom in the camera, but you also move the camera back, I think is exactly how it kind of works.
I know the effect, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, they use that a lot in games like Uncharted and Tomb Raider, where you're in a high intensity situation. It adds to the kind of this feeling of tunnel visioning.
Yeah.
Like, you're mega focused on this one thing at this point in time. And so whenever you're like racing games do it all the time, like whenever you're actually starting to gain speed, it actually uses that effect to make it feel like you're going faster than you actually are. So it adds that kind of intensity of like this moment of, I'm doing something really fast, or, I'm hyper focused on this one thing right now. That adds to pressure as well.
Yeah. They had a really cool one of these in the Control DLC as well, Matt.
Yeah, I need to play that DLC.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
I think regardless, I think we can all agree that the worst kind of pressure is when you're busting to go to the toilet, but you're playing a video game. And you should go to the toilet, but you're like, I'll just put it off a little bit longer. And then you
sometimes I punish myself when I need to go to the bathroom and I'm playing Hearthstone, but I keep losing. And I say, I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom until I win a game.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't deserve it.
You don't.
I'm just piss my pants.
Yeah. And then you do it, and you're like, "I'm a dirty animal. I deserve it." What is wrong with you?
Yeah. It'd be better.
That's terrible.
Champions don't shit their pants.
Champions don't shit themselves.
Exactly. Champions shit your pants.
But that's how I feel.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean,
champions get to pee.
You can not in that way, but you could definitely have instances of self-imposed pressure where you sort of make things harder for yourself because you actually want the challenge. I think difficulty settings are partly one of those things too, because some people thrive on that kind of thing and don't actually enjoy a game unless they feel that they're placed under significant pressure. So I think that's actually probably one of the things that really attracts people to roguelikes in general.
Yeah. Actually, like you say that, like self-imposed pressure is one of my favorite things with like Halo. playing Halo 3 and everything like that. I have all these Marines. Nobody dies, right? Nobody dies today under my watch, and putting the pressure on yourself of like trying to keep watching all these people, or the pressure of trying to achieve something very specific. Like if you're going for an achievement that's incredibly difficult to get. Fucking Animal Crossing. The pressure of doing fishing, and like you've got that freaking achievement thing in Animal Crossing where you have to catch so many fish without a break.
Yeah,
The fucking pressure from that.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a self inflicted pressure, right? But
Christian and I did that. We've both done that.
Yeah.
No, I gave up. I was
Because
like,
champions don't fish themselves.
I think that the upside of sort of having a really high pressure situation and achieving the goal at the end of it is that the achievement feels so much more worthwhile. A great example for me was last year when I managed to finish that Moments of Triumph seal for Destiny 2. I was down to the wire getting that done in time before the season ended, and like absolutely killed myself doing it. But holy shit, that felt good as a result at the end, and that was a large part because of the huge amount of pressure I put on myself. So it could have gone completely the other way too, but it didn't.
This is why you get arguments about should Dark Souls have an easy mode, right? And because people say the pressure people usually just talk about difficulty, but that feeling of pressure as part of that is part of the enjoyment that you get from it. So if you don't feel that pressure, you get the same enjoyment from the game. And what's always overlooked is that people achieve that pressure at different levels.
I think that kind of pressure belongs in a lot of games that you would not otherwise expect it to. And I think a really good example of where it works in a completely different type of game genre is actually Stardew Valley. Like Stardew Valley, because it works on a real-time system, like the resource that you have in terms of the amount of minutes in the day that you can actually get stuff done, and you need to do certain things within certain seasons, like you need to earn a certain amount of money, plant a certain amount of crops. The fact that you've got like a dwindling resource that is time, which kind of puts the pressure on all the time to get stuff done, is like, I think it's one of the things that makes that game really good. It's not as fan as you would otherwise expect. Really? Okay.
Yeah, I've tried to play Stardew Valley twice, and both times I tried to play it, it's been the time management system that stressed me out and made me not want to play it.
Okay, so I guess it's a good example of, some people, just like roguelikes, some people would gravitate naturally towards them because they like that kind of aspect, but that case you didn't, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I love Stardew Valley because, like, I quite like the management pressure, like trying to do everything. Okay, well, I've got these things to do. I'm going to plan out my days and everything like that. Whereas like Dark Souls, like, I've talked before about the fact that I can't really handle the pressure in Dark Souls. So yeah, like I think it's different types of pressure. Impact different people different ways.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last point I want to make is, most importantly, going off what Christian said about people experience like that reward of pressure at different levels. It's important to note that also creates a hierarchy of who is best and who is worst.
Yeah.
And if you need to lower the level of pressure, you are by definition worse than people that don't need to do that.
So where do you sit on the hierarchy with the dark water pressure?
Yeah,
dark water. Dark water. Yeah, right at the top.
I succeeded.
Piss baby Adrian.
I didn't change the difficulty. I played it on the realistic color filter so that it was darker at night. That's pressure.
It does need to be played on Filmic. If you play Subnautica without Filmic on, it's not the proper experience.
And yet he couldn't bring himself to play survival mode in No Man's Sky. So.
Yeah, couldn't handle the pressure.
No.
Final thing I wanted to do is
eat a dick, Luke. Eat my toaster dick.
I wanted to quickly score those 3 games I mentioned in my This Week in Gaming on their pressure mechanics. Mm-hmm. So obviously we've talked about Subnautica, and that does a good job, although I feel like it goes a little overboard with making me feel under pressure during quiet moments, but otherwise great. Final Fantasy VII Remake has the same kind of Super Metroid-ish pressure, where when you set the bomb on the Mako reactor at the start, there's a timer you need to escape.
Yeah.
So it has that similar, and because it's got real-time combat, there's and it doesn't suck you into a random battle. I think it has a more genuine sort of flow of time to the feeling. So it's handled quite well. And then Call of Duty World War II has boring, crappy, overly difficult, outdated QuickTime events that are always the same. It's always a German soldier grabs you out of nowhere, mash a button, mash, and then there's something that you need to reach. And in order to reach it, you need to move one of the thumbsticks to line up with the dot. And then when you get to the dot, it'll tell you which button to press. But it's always takes way too long to get to that point. It's too small on the screen, and it's repetitive and shit.
Yep. That does sound pretty bad. That does sound very old. Yep.
Yeah.
QuickTime events in general, I think, are garbage.
Yeah,
I think it's cheap pressure in the same way that jump scares are cheap pressure.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think there's very few games that have done it well lately. Yeah.
Is that MASH?
It is.
Button mash.
Like, that's the Korean War.
Yeah.
It's all war.
It's all war.
It's all the same war.
That's it. What is it good for? Good for a discussion like this. I think that's pretty much covered everything.
Nice one, Luke. Nice one.
No, that was terrible.
That was a stretch.
I was under pressure. Yeah.
Redo the fucking episode now. That was so
Christian goes,
bad.
nice one, Luke. You may well have said that was fucking shit.
And on that note, I think that's a show. So, anyway, thanks, gentlemen. That was a good discussion tonight. Lots of game talk. I'm very excited to see what the next week's going to bring, though. So we've got a potential Persona 4 Golden sort of announcement on the weekend. We've got the PlayStation next generation big lineup presentation happening. It's been moved to this Friday now, I believe. So we're finally getting.
I hope Mark Cerny talked about teraflops.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh yeah. For hours.
3 hours.
It's the one thing that'll get your teraflops going hard drive. So, yeah, that'll be cool.
Some might label that as difficult to wank to.
But not for you.
No, I can.
It's Mark Cerny. What's not to like?
You can butter that one on both sides, Adrian. That's what you can do. Yeah. Catch us at all our usual locations, twitch.tv/partyloaded, at partyloaded show on Twitter, Facebook partyloaded, and channelendgame.com for the main hub with everything all included in one easy location. That's it. So we haven't decided what we're streaming next week, but can we maybe convince everyone to do a Deep Rock Galactic run?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna pressure everyone into doing it because I think we should do it, and I think we should delete any progress we already made.
Okay.
Because it's now been released officially. We should reset all our progress and start from the beginning all together as a group of 4.
We miss the real Dark Souls of pressure, which is peer pressure. That's the one we didn't talk
Peer
about.
pressure, yeah.
So yeah. Nice.
Yeah. I think the 4 of us will play Deep Rock Galactic. I think we'll love it. I'm gonna. Now that I have no exams distracting me, there's nothing stopping me from peer pressuring everyone.
Yeah, nice. All right, we'll do that. All right, anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Hope you've had a good one. We'll see you next time. Until then, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.